Members and friends of the Greensboro Radio Club are visiting today with Hoyt Hinshaw, a well-known member. Hoyt, tell us a little bit about your life's work.
Well, I got out of the Army in 1945, started at Guilford College in 46 there, continued my studies, that is. And, of course, had a major in physics and a minor in mathematics. But that's when I got interested in ham radio. Of course, we'll come back to that a little later. I went through, finished Guilford. I ran a radio shop, a radio and television shop, Western Auto Store, and what have you. Well, after so long, I sold that business out and went to work for the Civil Aviation Administration. Of course, that's before most of his time. Then, of course, it was later changed to Federal Aviation Administration. Very interesting work around airports and what have you. First, well, I went to Asheville for a year up there, and that's when I got my ham ticket. Speaking of ham tickets, I got interested in amateur radio back in, I'd say in the late 40s. A fellow, Ham Tatum, W4INK, had a Stanker 203, and you old-timers know what that thing was.
Yes, I do.
Doubled in the final 10 meters, and it made a good TVI generator. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. We talked all over the world, Miss 39 Chevrolet, that Stanker 203. But anyway, meanwhile back the Federal Aviation Administration. 1954, I moved back to Greensboro, and that's when I got interested in, well, not interested, got my ticket in 44, but that's when I joined the Greensboro Radio Club. Now, that was a nice group of people, and I enjoyed that thoroughly. Learned quite a bit. Of course, I might say something, I hate to ramble, but say something about the airport and the Federal Aviation Administration. From 58 through 75, I was the chief, the Airways Facilities Section in Greensboro. We maintained and were responsible for all the facilities that the federal government had around the Greensboro Airport and the Winston Airport, I might add, as well as outlying VOR, which is people who fly know what I'm talking about, and around the airport, of course, we were responsible for everything they had, radar, instrument landing systems, and so forth. Rather technical, and I thoroughly enjoyed that for years and years. In the later years, I was transferred. They wanted a training officer at the Atlanta sector, and of course, I was elected. The last 2 years of my service with the Federal Aviation Administration was in Atlanta, and of course, that's when I retired. Been a lot of fun. I don't know what else to add. Anything you want me to add, Don?
You were president of the Greensboro Radio Club, and we at the club voted to make Barry Goldwater, K7UGA, an honorary member. Here's a shot of you and Barry, Hoyt. Can you tell us a little bit about that presentation?
Well, this was quite an exciting event. I look forward to it. Barry Goldwater was one of my favorites. He's one of the few politicians I have a whole lot of respect for. We met him at the airport, and of course he was here on a political situation during his campaign for president. Lord, I wish he'd have made it, but that's another story. But this was something else. He, of course, didn't make it, but several of the hams have talked to him on the air, including me, and I forgot his call letters, but nevertheless, that's been some time ago.
Well, we followed him after the airport trip. He gave a speech and he said, "You want to know what would happen if you cut off foreign aid?" And the answer was, yes, we'd have poorer enemies. What were some of your favorite items at the radio club that you participated in?
Well, the fellowship was the main thing. That's one of the nicest bunch of fellows I've ever had any dealings with. I thoroughly enjoyed all of them. You say, well, there's a few outstanding. Phil Wicker was one of them. And remember Leo Madden? He was one of the sharper technicians. I remember the good old days, too, that I just got real proud of myself. I built me a whole kilowatt of AM, had the whole station built and in operation, and I bet I made a dozen contacts with it, and I got interested in single sideband. Now, you should have heard the ribbon I got at the Greensboro Radio Club.
I helped.
Donald Duck, quack, 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 and all that stuff. I guess about that time there was a half a dozen of us in the whole state of North Carolina on single sideband. Of course, in those days you built your equipment. You didn't buy it. There was no such thing as buying equipment. So you should have seen us scrounging parts and what have you, and building phase shift networks and what have you for the single sideband exciters we built. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was something else. It was kind of a pioneering situation, I guess. I don't know, well, of course, as you remember, we had the big old kilowatt plus up there for AM we talked all over the country. But let's go back to the single sideband. They, of course, they had a lot of fun with me. I took it all in good nature. I enjoyed it. I mean, it was fun. But, you know, there's not many of them on AM now, if you stop and think about it. In fact, I don't know of any right now. Maybe there are. But it was a lot of fun.
You converted me. What do you miss most about the radio club, Hoyt?
Well, really, I missed the fellowship. We had these get-togethers, and, you know, we had some mighty good parties. We even had the wives out and everything else. And it was a real active and a good radio club. In fact, we were known all over the country.
What has amateur radio meant to you in your lifetime, Hoyt?
It's been a lot of fun. I have thoroughly enjoyed it as a hobby. And of course, my vocation was electronics, and this was avocation, maybe that helped me, I don't know. But it's been an awful lot of fun, relaxation, enjoyment, and a challenge, I might add, over the years.
I want to extend a special thanks to you on behalf of members and friends of the Greensboro Radio Club for participating in our video.
Well, it's been a pleasure. The pleasure's all mine.